Hey everyone, it's Kong again with another episode of Should You Summon, and as always, I'll be presenting high-level overviews of these characters, using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. How they fit into your team, whether they unlock any bonds for you, what kind of content they get used for, and their future availability. So let's get right into this Destiny banner featuring the existing characters Listell, Omega, and Renata, running from January 28th to February 10th. As a Destiny banner, the first SSR that you pull from this banner is guaranteed to be one of these 3 that you don't already have. After that first SSR pops, or if you already have all 3 of these characters, then this is just a normal raid up banner. So let's go ahead and start with Listell. Listell's a PvP focused unit, mostly known for her ability to mess up your opponent's healing. She does also have minor self and team healing skills, and an ability that lets her guard magical damage, so she's technically a tank. She is a stat conversion character, so her outgoing damage is based on her magic defense rather than her int, so that's something to take into consideration when you're enchanting. She has no 3-cost skill or unique equipment yet. She's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozal and Licorice, and Yeles Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bond for the Sage of the Trees, and she also needs the normal vanilla Landius for her own attack bond, but that bond isn't highly necessary on her because that's not the stat that she attacks with. For content, in PvE, she's good in Timeless Trials maps that have fixed damage laws. She can be quite useful as a source of reliable debuffs against Fenrir in Ancient Beckoning, but her true PvE calling is part of the One Cheese to Rule Them All against Valkyrie level 70 in the Eternal Temple. Now, every time I talk about Listell, people ask me what this cheese is, or how it works, or if it still works, and it does. I don't have a video on it personally, so I will link one right here for you. On the PvP side, she has a variety of ways to be pretty annoying. You can use Reaper's Touch on healers to make them deal damage to their heal targets, or on auto-healing characters like Yulia, or Elwin, or Yusuke, and Jugler to take them out of commission. She has Curse of Wounding and Blood Dance, and those can be used to blast huge fixed damage and make heroes unable to be healed. Listell bombs aren't quite as OP as they used to be, because there's a lot of Gospel and Blood Pact and Swordsmith medals out there now. She's still a common ban target though, as a lot of people straight up just don't want to have to deal with her. For availability, she's not showing up on the upcoming banner schedule, so she won't be headlining another banner until mid-July at the earliest. Now, moving on to Omega. Omega was kind of underrated when he first launched because all the hype was on Yulia at the time. It's kind of funny that Omega's coming back around now when Yulia's just kind of getting back on the PvP hype horse. Either way, while people were initially evaluating him based on what he could do in PvP, he really started to shine as a PvE cheese machine. He can use Cold Blood to move an additional 2 tiles before attacking. His talent also lets you teleport back to where you initiated your action, and then move 1 to 3 more spaces if you killed your target. You want to run him as an assassin for higher skill, and then jack his skill up as much as possible to give yourself the best chance of being able to take advantage of Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack allows you to ignore guard if your skill is double that of your target, and even bypass troops and attack the hero directly if your skill is triple. So obviously having as much skill as possible gives him an easier time of being able to take out his enemies. He does have a 3-cost skill coming to global servers in April, and this increases crit rate and crit damage, and it also increases hero skill range and lets him move again with his leftover movement, +2, in straight lines only, kind of like Ares' dive bomb setup. This move again chance also doesn't burn off buff cooldowns, meaning you can set him up with a skill boost from Witch's Hat in advance and not lose it immediately. When I saw that it increases hero skill range, I was kind of excited that maybe I didn't need Ullrs on him anymore, but you still do need that for his troops to attack at extended long range beside him. So, Ullrs is still going to be good on him. He's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozal and Licorice, and Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida. For bonds, he unlocks the defensive bond for Gizaroth, and for his own bonds, he needs Sigma for the defensive bond and Lambda for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, Omega's actually a pretty solid character for trivializing a lot of the run-of-the-mill PvE stuff, like story, time rifts, some timeless trials, joint battles, and some challenges. Surprise Attack, allowing you to ignore guard and troops, can let him erase many units and then teleport back to safety thanks to his talent. While this makes him useful against normal enemies, it also means he's not the greatest at sustained fights against big, HP sponge super bosses. So even though his factions give him a boost in certain Eternal Temple or Ancient Beckoning fights, he's not really worth fielding in those. In PvP, while you don't see him super commonly, he is still a threat, and his surprise attack skill did shift the meta for a while. Namely, it impacted how players spec'd out their equipment mastery and chance. It became common to try to build at least enough additional skill to prevent being tripled by Omega. The big problem for Omega, of course, is that once players do reach those thresholds, his usefulness in PvP drops off pretty dramatically. Any players who can't outskill Omega will usually opt to ban him as soon as possible, just to get him out of the way. And if you do get a chance to field your Omega, then you don't really know if you can outskill your opponents until it's too late, like once you get into the actual match and see what their skill levels are. For availability, he's also not showing up on the upcoming banner schedule, so that means he won't be headlining another banner until mid-July at the earliest. Finally, we have Renata. Renata's gimmick revolves around her Dragon Seal mechanic, which allows her to attack affected enemies through guard with boosted damage, and makes it so they can't move again or use passive skills. So there are a couple of ways of applying Dragon Seal. One is just to attack with her 2-cost Dragon Seal skill, it's fairly straightforward. But it'll also be applied to any enemy who attacks any of her allies in a ring around her. This method also boosts Renata's movement range. And combined with the new flying dragon troops that she has access to, this can actually make her fairly mobile. Dragon Seal also synergizes with her 3-cost skill, which is a big damage single target attack. If the enemy's not flying, Renata gets to attack first, and if the enemy's affected by Dragon Seal already, Renata gets a self-revive buff for the next 2 turns. She's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda. And as a special bonus consideration, with her unique helm, which is coming to global servers in March, she's able to receive a Meteor Strike faction buff from Zerida. For bonds, she doesn't currently roadblock any other character's bonds, but we don't know if she'll be important for some upcoming Reincarnation Tensei units. For her own bonds, she needs Licorice for her defensive bond, and Akka for her attack bond. Now, for content, in PvE she's on faction for Leviar and Fenrir, and against the Wolf in particular, she's a reliable source of debuffs, since she'll plaster him with her talent debuffs every time he AoEs your team. In PvP, she can be a powerful, mobile, single-target striker who makes your enemies have to think twice about who they're attacking. The only thing is, she wants a friend to get attacked first, which means someone is probably dead or at least out of commission. She then gets a damage perk against an enemy who's probably already hurt or crippled or gone, so her target options are either going to require some setup, or they're going to be completely determined by your opponent, which puts you in a reactive position. Which is not exactly the most advantageous position to be in Apex Arena. On the bright side, she does pack a big punch, and she does have some confusion and unfamiliarity factor, but box space is also more competitive than ever. Still, with her unique helm and the new dragon troops and Hilda's faction buff all coming up, this is probably as good as it gets for Renata. She is one of those niche characters where if you put a lot of investment into her and figure out how she works in your box, then you can get some decent use out of her, but it's just not going to work for the majority of the player base. For availability, like the other characters on this banner, she's not showing up on the upcoming banner schedule either, so she won't be headlining any other banners until mid-July at the earliest. So here's the quick and dirty. We have Listell, who makes bad guys bleeds, attack bond for trees, and Valkyrie cheese. We have Omega, who wants as much skill as possible, unlocks the defensive bond for Gizarov, and activates easy mode for routine PvE content. And we have Renata, who can hunt down and punish enemies who attack your teammates. She has situational guard ignore and self-revive effects, and she's a good source of debuffs against Fenrir. Now, just the usual reminder about upcoming banners. Next week is another one of those great recurring banners, featuring Rachel, Lana, and Tiaras. They're all good, but Tiaras is the star, so if you're a newer player and you're missing her, well, that's something to consider. The week after that is going to be the launch of the next batch of new characters, Muriel and the tiniest Jessica of them all, from Langrisser Reincarnation Tensei. They're both strong PvP characters, especially this season, So if you're into PvP, then definitely don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when that episode of Should You Summon drops. Okay, I hope you found this video and these summaries helpful in some way. Let me know in the comments if you're looking to pick off someone from this banner and what kind of luck you ended up having. Personally, I have all 3 of these characters already, and I'm too hyped for the new Jessica, and still sitting on 90 summons worth of pity, so I couldn't really summon anyway without wasting that. So it's going to be a skip for me, unfortunately. Thanks so much for watching, as always, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon.